Hi there, welcome to the sixth video of this series working with data frames, and here we will look at some of the ways by which we can work with the data frames in a general way which is required in pretty much every data analysis. Alright, so let's go ahead and import the Pandas library and from Pandas import the data frame as well. So let's go ahead and execute that, and we will going to read the Excel file which we have read in the previous videos as well. Here I have shown you how to read the data from an Excel file, and we are reading the sample superstore file, and we are getting the first sheet by specifying this 0, which indicates the first sheet, 1 will indicate 2, second sheet, and so on and so forth. So first sheet name is orders, so that's what the object name I have given to store the values. So if I go ahead and execute this, and using the head command or the head function, I will simply get the first 5 rows if I want to have a look at the data, which I usually want after I have read the data. So here is the data set that I have just read, and here is the columns information. So this will give me an idea about for some verification that all my data points, like number of columns and their values, are properly coming or not. Well, if you want a little bit less or more information, you can always specify a value over here. So if I want just 2 values, I can go ahead and say 2, and I will only get the first and second observation. If I want more, I can specify, let's say 20, and get 4 values. Alright, after this, let's get the column names that are present in this data set, and it's pretty easy. As you can see, I will just access this order object I created and use the columns to get the list of columns. Alright, here it is, the columns information, all the columns that it has. Now the question arises, why I would like to do that? Well, in many cases, after loading this entire data, you may want to create some subsets of data set. So for example, only some specific columns you may want to use, and instead of writing each and every column name, it's pretty easy to get all the column names in a format like this and specify in the subset, which I will show you in next couple of commands. In that way, you will going to create a subset of a data set which is very specific for your analysis, and for that reason you may want to access the columns information. Alright, here we are creating a subset which I just mentioned. So what we are doing is we are using the data frame functions, specifying the first values as the orders that we want to access the orders data frame that we just created, and these are the only columns which I want from this orders data frame. And with the help of this data frame, we are creating a new data frame which is orders underscore subset. So this is pretty generic, but you can give any specific name which is related to your analysis. So I have just copied and pasted some columns, like just picking up like this and pasted over here, and I'm just executing this. And after that, I'm using the head, and let's just show the first 3 observations. I'll specify 3. Execute this. So this way, now it's pretty easy for me to look at this data set, because it contains only those columns on which I want to do the analysis, but not the entire hundreds of columns, let's say, if that's the case in your data set. So that's why it is really helpful to access the columns and then create a data set with the help of this data frame function. Now let's see what happens in case if you are giving any additional column which is not present in your data frame. And here I have specified the returns after the customer name. So let's see this piece in action and see what values it contains. So I'm pressing execute this, and it is just containing the NaN. So sometimes it is useful to create additional columns, and that's the way you can create it. And maybe later in the stage you have a plan to store some calculated value. Let's say you get the order number from a different file, and you want to assign the order numbers over here with the help of some criteria. Or let's say you are having a final price, for example, and you are saying sales plus profit, and then finally saying, okay, this is my final price on which I have got the revenue. So that kind of operations you can create by creating a new column, and that's how you can specify the new column. And after that you can specify the calculation, which we will see in subsequent videos about how we can do that. And after that we will see how we can get the individual columns, like we have seen in the previous videos about how to work with the series. So if I go ahead and execute this is the way I can get any individual column values for, let's say, if I want to do some operation on a particular column values. Alright, after that what we can do is or what I have is how you can access the series with the help of the dot notation. And if you have seen my previous video where I have talked about series, so this dot notation is helpful only in those cases where you don't have any space between the column names. So for example, this order date is basically having a space between these two words, and that's why I cannot use the dot notation. But here down there in this case, in case of sales, I don't have any two words which are having space, so I can go ahead and use this and get the sales values. Alright, and after this I have the last command for you, which is removing the column. Alright, if I just scroll it down, so first thing is deleting the column. So if I just do this, so this was the additional column that we added, and let's say we want to remove this. So if I go ahead and execute this, and along with that I am executing the head command. Alright, as you can see, with the help of del delete, I have removed the returns column, and with the help of head I am able to see the first 5 observations, and in that I can verify that this column is not present. So that's the way you can do the operations with your data frame and get it in the desired way, or that is required for your analysis.